That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, so I was going to make this a wide receiver waiver wire video, and I went, well, you know what? While there are some very interesting wide receivers, and I can't wait to show you the last guy that we have in this video, there are still some other positions that I think we should be covering here, especially because wide receiver, there aren't really 5-6 guys that you need to be going out there and picking up. I think there are a few key players that I really want to be focusing in on. So yeah, let's go through, let's focus in on them. But before we get to it, you know exactly what we have to do here. We are going to be going through and announcing the winners for the Flock Hat giveaway. We are giving away one Flock Hat for a random winner for someone who left any comment on the previous YouTube video. So every time you leave a comment on a YouTube video, you do get entered into win a Flock Hat. And this comment is coming from our most recent video that we uploaded at the time of this recording, which was our top 10 fantasy football lessons. And here, this is going to be Kyle. And Kyle says, love the content, bro. What is everyone's thoughts on Tyler Lockett? Worth starting him over Antonio Gibson for week 3? Yes. Seahawks playing the Vikings and Washington playing the Bills? Yes. Start him over Antonio Gibson. Not going to talk about that too much, but you do win a Flock Hat. All you have to do is make sure you send me that email. You can find the email in the description of the video. And then for our other giveaway through Underdog Fantasy, for anybody who signed up to Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK, made that $10 deposit, get the max deposit bonus added to your account. Also get into some drafts with me. You can also go through, make some over-under picks on what you have with player props this week. We actually have made money back-to-back weeks. Y'all can see that on the sports betting channel, but let's go through and pull up that winner right now. Okay, this random email is going to be very weird. This is Tum777. We're going to cut it off there. Of course, I don't want y'all to be spamming these people we're showing as the winners in the live chat. So those are the two winners. Congratulations on your new Fantasy Flock Network hat. Let's get into these waiver wire pickups here. And let's start it off with the wide receiver that is going to be the most added wide receiver of the week. Let's go Rondale Moore. And with Rondale Moore, yes, a monstrous game. And I kind of said this on the video previously today, where my initial reaction when I saw that Rondale Moore game is I was like, oh my God, I'm embarrassed here. We had multiple questions asking if people should be starting Rondale Moore this week. And every single time I said, no, you can't start Rondale Moore. No, you can't start Christian Kirk. You're going to see some regression for this overall Arizona Cardinals passing attack. And you still have DeAndre Hopkins as the alpha wide receiver target there. And for whatever reason, they're still playing AJ Green a ridiculous amount of snaps. Well, it doesn't matter. Rondale Moore goes out there and he completely crushes. Rondale Moore, 7 receptions, 114 yards, a touchdown on 8 targets to go along with it. Now, I will say, once you dig a little bit deeper with this overall Rondale Moore situation, I still want to stand by the fact that we told people to bench him in this past week. Now, you're looking at Rondale Moore, and while, yes, this is a massive blow-up performance, I mean, the majority of this production came on one busted play, as well as he only played 46% of the snaps in Arizona. So while I'm viewing Rondale Moore and I'm saying, well, this is definitely a player that we have seen. I mean, the prospect profile, we actually laid it out in our Dynasty Rookie Draft Guide. And why I loved Rondale Moore in the NFL draft this year is not because he is an absurd level athlete. I mean, he is one of the best athletes already in the NFL. If you look at what he did with his 40, if you look at his vertical jump, Thomas, I know this may be a little bit of extra work. Please bear with me. Everybody give Thomas a big thank you down there in the comment section below. But Thomas, can you throw up the clip of his vertical jump, or at least put up a picture on the screen so people can see what a freak athlete Rondale Moore is? And to go along with this, Rondale Moore, what is most exciting about him is not the athletic profile. It's more so if you look at the historic production that he had at 18 years old at Purdue. Don't have the numbers in front of me. Thomas will throw them up on the screen. But you're looking at these numbers and you're going, well, this is fantastic for a junior. This is fantastic for a player that's 20 years old. But to accomplish those numbers as a true freshman at 18 years old in a respectable conference, I mean, that is ridiculous for Rondale Moore. Now, I will say we're going to have to be slightly concerned about the higher risk for injury, considering the fact that this is a player that's 5'7". This is a player that dealt with injuries in his past 2 seasons in college. There are going to be some concerns there. But at the end of the day, if we're talking about a waiver wire wide receiver, and Rondale Moore somehow is only rostered in about 7% of leagues currently. 7% of leagues. This is a wide receiver with a ton of talent, playing one of the best offenses in the NFL with Cliff Kingsbury. That's another thing we talked about with Ronald Moore, and why I really wanted to be targeting him in our dynasty rookie drafts coming into this season was based on the fact that he lands with Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray. With Ronald Moore, we kind of already said it. We said that if he landed with the New York Giants, if he landed with one of these offenses that was going to be very one-dimensional and that wasn't going to be creative and use Ronald Moore for his fullest skill set, we were going to be very bearish on Ronald Moore, knowing that this is a player that had to be put into the right scheme. But what we have had through 2 weeks so far with Ronald Moore, I think you have to be very confident in what we could have for later on in the season. So we're going to be picking up Ronald Moore as a must-add guy just based on the ceiling that he'll have in the second half of the year. But to be honest, in week 3, I don't want you to go out there and start him blindly just because the amount of snaps, not that high for now. So we're going to have to be a little hesitant to just jam him into our starting lineup. And now our next wide receiver here is going to be Henry Ruggs. And with Henry Ruggs, only owned in 18% of leagues, very surprising. And what you love to see with Henry Ruggs, not only the massive touchdown from Derek Carr, not only the fact that Derek Carr has looked very good the first 2 weeks of his NFL start in 2021, but let's talk about the defenses that he's gone up against. He's gone up against Baltimore and he's gone up against Pittsburgh. This Pittsburgh defense literally shut down Josh Allen in the Buffalo Bills 1 week prior, before Derek Carr going out there and putting up monstrous numbers against them. I think all of a sudden, maybe you actually have things coming together when we have Darren Waller going into year 3 as a tight end. I think Darren Waller, it's understandable to assume that he gets better with his 3rd season at the tight end position. Henry Ruggs and Bryan Edwards both going into year 2. Hunter Renfrow also going into year 3 at wide receiver. I mean, you would expect some natural progression. They also invest into the offensive line this past offseason. They invest into an additional passing game weapon in Kenyon Drake. So it looks like things may be coming together for these overall Las Vegas Raiders. And I think with Henry Ruggs, I mean, this is a player that, I mean, we know that he has a ton of potential. He was the first wide receiver selected in the 2020 draft class. And as a small side note, I know it was a bad pick. I know that CeeDee Lamb was that bona fide stud, but you have to really understand what NFL offenses are trying to prioritize when they go in, they pour their resources into a certain player. And that's looking at the different profiles of these wide receivers. Henry Ruggs, with the elite speed that he has, while it may not necessarily translate directly to statistics, don't just naturally assume that he's some horrendous pick by the Raiders because he's not putting up the same amount of yards that you have with a player later on in that draft. Just because he's not putting up the same numbers doesn't mean he's a bust. You have to understand that Henry Ruggs, just being in this offense in general, making sure that there have to be 2 safeties back at all times, and they really can't crowd the box because Henry Ruggs does take the top off. I mean, that just helps the overall efficiency of the entire offense. So that's just a quick side piece. What I really want to focus in on with Henry Ruggs is just based on the fact that we have had now multiple instances of these massive splash plays. He also gets 7 targets this week. That is very exciting, knowing that Henry Ruggs only needs to have 1 to be highly productive in his offense. So yeah, Henry Ruggs, I mean, there are multiple reasons to get excited. You have the volume, you have the boom play potential, you have the fact that Derek Carr has played very well against tough defenses. And I mean, I just think that if he stays healthy, and if you have to jam someone into your flex spot during one of these weeks that you're going to be dealing with a significant amount of buys, Henry Ruggs is kind of like a poor man's version of Tyler Lockett, where yes, maybe he goes out there and drops 3 points, but he could also go out there and drop 30. Now, our next player is also going to be at wide receiver before we get to the exciting players at the other positions later on. It's going to be Zach Pascal. And with Zach Pascal here, yes, you did have Paris Campbell, I mean, just being ruled inactive this game. And that definitely helped out Pascal significantly, where right now he is owned in 12% of leagues. And if you're looking at the first 2 weeks, he's actually been very productive. Now, I'll say that you're not going to be expecting this level of productivity to remain this high, mainly centered around the fact that the touchdown rate is going to decrease for Zach Pascal. But you're looking at it where in week 1, he came away with 5 targets, 4 receptions, 43 receiving yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns to go along with it. In week 2, he came away with 6 targets, 5 receptions, 38 receiving yards, and a touchdown as well. So I'm going to be honest, in a 10-man league, you have no reason to roster him. This is a player that does have a lower ceiling. You're more so looking at him and saying, well, I mean, he's kind of proven that he is an every down player now for this offense. He's proven that he does have a very high floor for your fantasy leagues. Now, another thing that I want to discuss is the fact that I think you could be playing in a situation where if Jack Doyle does see his overall role in this offense decrease. I mean, Jack Doyle had a significant amount of receiving yards this past week. I think you could see slightly more production going over to Zach Pascal. We also have to keep in mind that Carson Wentz really didn't have that much time with this team to develop, considering that he was dealing with that injury. And we have to remember that Carson Wentz, a lot of people, including myself, once that injury occurred, we didn't think that we were going to see Carson Wentz until October. So maybe Carson Wentz just isn't close to 100% yet. So if you have Carson Wentz just continuing to improve in this offense, maybe you have some of the production leaving away from Jack Doyle, and instead of going over to the wide receiver position, I mean, Michael Pittman, he can't be getting much more than he got this past week. Michael Pittman had that blow up week, and Zach Pascal still managed to be highly productive. As of now, T.Y. Hilton's on the IR. So just an intriguing play if you're going to be playing in a deeper format. Now let's go right back to a very efficient offense. Let's talk about someone that I was honestly very surprised to see. Let's talk about Max Williams here, a name that you probably know if you're playing in deep tight end premium dynasty leagues, at least if you were back in 2019. This is not a name that's been brought up in a very long time, so I was surprised to see this blow up spot. And what I was more surprised to see, because you can go out there and you can see, 94 receiving yards for Max Williams. What, did he have one reception for like 70 yards? That's like the craziest thing ever. How did he find that blow up spot? No, it's even more impressive than that, at least for trying to predict this production going forward. Because with Max Williams, he comes away with 7 targets and 7 receptions to go along with it. So the fact that he is coming away with 7 receptions, turning that into 94 receiving yards, putting up one of the best tight end performances of this week without scoring a single touchdown, that is massive. And this is a player currently only rostered in approximately 0.001% of leagues. And I mean, I think that's even being a little generous. I think that's really just looking at those deep dynasty formats. If you're playing in just a regular redraft league, I mean, you're going to have Max Williams available to you everywhere. And this should be a spot that you should be able to go to and take advantage. Now, of course, if you have Travis Kelce, if you have Darren Waller, if you have Kyle Pitts, you have TJ Hawkinson. I mean, you can even throw Rob Gronkowski into that mix now. You have one of those stud tight ends. You're not going to be viewing it as a situation where you want to be rostering a backup guy. But if we're going down a little bit deeper, say you're starting tight end right now, is someone like Dallas Goedert, say it's Tyler Higbee, a tight end in that tier. At that point, I would prefer to just bring in a little more depth, because we know that just having as many players in this elite level offense as possible, that's going to be fantastic, because we know that Cliff Kingsbury definitely is looking to push the pace of play with Arizona this year. They're going to be getting a ton of plays in, and that should give Max Williams a decently high ceiling when he's playing with that elite quarterback option. But now let's go over to a quarterback that I will admit, I did not draft him in many leagues this offseason, yet I think that he is a priority add right here, and this is going to be Justin Fields. So the reason I wasn't drafting Justin Fields in many leagues is because I definitely prefer Trey Sermon. I think Trey Sermon's the better talent that's going to be stepping into the better situation, but it looks like Sermon is going to be on the back burner for now, while we just have to see Jimmy Garoppolo go through and perform well against pretty bad teams and with his elite supporting cast. Anyway, I can't wait to see Trey Sermon, but for now, what we have is Justin Fields. Justin Fields possesses many of the same traits in that you're looking at him as someone with a very low floor. I mean, we already saw how low this floor is this past week, where Justin Fields was very disappointing in this start, where he actually only threw for 60 yards total. Now, keep in mind, Justin Fields was not announced the starter coming into the week. It's not like Justin Fields had the entire week to prepare and Matt Nagy could go through and just build this team around him. No, it was instead a scenario where Andy Dalton was going to be the starting quarterback. Justin Fields got thrusted in halfway through because the Andy Dalton injury. And here this led to Justin Fields with 13 attempts, 6 completions, 60 yards. Yes, he comes out with an interception, no passing touchdowns at the same time. A very bad week from Justin Fields. So we're never coming out here and saying that Justin Fields is some bona fide stud quarterback. However, what we're looking at with Justin Fields is an option that you're just having an elite ceiling. While yes, the floor is very low, what we need to see with one of these rookie quarterbacks to come in and make that league-breaking difference is we need to see the rushing upside. And based on the 40 time that Justin Fields showed coming into the NFL, based on also his rushing production at Ohio State, I mean, Thomas can throw it up right now, but please keep in mind that this rushing production you're looking at in college, they actually treat sacks as negative rushing yards. I know it's a little weird, so just know that it's a little more impressive than it actually seems to be. So if Justin Fields can come in with the supporting cast of Allen Robinson, Darnell Mooney, and they can build this offense around him and he can have that elite rushing upside, I think Justin Fields is someone that you just have to pick up. Don't start him right away, but if you have someone say, I hate to go this way, but Joe Burrow as your starting quarterback right now, it's a great thing to be picking up Justin Fields. Wait a week, see what it looks like, and then maybe Justin Fields comes out, smashes in week 3. He's the starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears the rest of the season, and if he does come out and he rushes for 40 yards a game, then that's someone that you're going to be able to play every single week. Now, our last player is going to be another guy very similar to what we actually had earlier with, I hate to say it, Zach Pascal. It's going to be KJ Osborne. I mean, a player that we did not talk about at all. I mean, this is a player that I know very little about. We had to do the research coming into this video, and it's surprising to see this profile actually popping like this. I mean, with KJ Osborne, one thing that I want to say now is once we start to see multiple weeks in a row of this level of production in this kind of target volume, this is when I think we can start to take notice, because last week we had a lot of people coming out and asking me if they should pick him up. I was like, no, are you kidding me? This is just a random blimp on the radar for some random wide receiver we're never going to hear from again. But Osborne comes out, and after in week 1, putting up 9 targets for 7 receptions and 76 receiving yards. In week 2, he goes out 6 targets, and I know 6 targets, that is definitely a step down, but still, with those 6 targets, he has 91 receiving yards, 5 receptions, and a touchdown to go along with it. I mean, very impressive. And yes, it was a decent matchup going up against an Arizona Cardinals defense that I know shut down the Tennessee Titans in week 1, but we already went through and talked about why that game got out of hand and talked about why we wanted to be betting on Tennessee going forward, as well as betting against that Arizona Cardinals defense. But here, anyway, I think we're viewing it as a scenario where KJ Osborne, if you're playing in a 10-man format, you're not picking him up. There's no reason for you. He's available in like 100% of leagues right now. But if you're playing in a 14-man league, I think that's when you become a little bit interested, because we know that, I mean, while yes, he is more so just a depth wide receiver that you're going to have at the very end of your bench as of now, if something were to occur to either Justin Jefferson or Adam Thielen, I think then you could see KJ Osborne become, I don't want to say an every week player for you, but at least in consideration for your flex spot. And it kind of makes sense why he's coming through with this target volume right now, because this team did lose Irv Smith Jr. right before the season started. Irv Smith Jr. was definitely going to be the number 3 on this team, and they really don't have a third tight end they can go with confidence. I mean, Tyler Conklin does not look like he's that guy. So it looks like it is going to be KJ Osborne. And yeah, that's all I got for y'all. I really hope that y'all enjoyed this video. I really hope you got something from it. Make sure you go down there, drop that like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, and most importantly, come out to the live stream tonight. We'll be answering all your questions. So make sure you're subscribed. Hit the bell next to the subscribe button. Go use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy. You can find that link in the description of the video. That way you can get multiple daily entries into winning a Fantasy Flock Network hat. We're going to be giving them away every single day for the rest of the season. And yeah, that's all I got for y'all, and have a great day.